guys. So I've been thinking a lot about how depression and Tourette syndrome, how they really affect how we think. It's very easy for me to have tunnel vision with my symptoms, whether it's Tourette syndrome and the tics, and depression and the low mood. But as I've been really putting a magnifying glass on my functioning, I've really been looking at how these two disorders, which by the way are intertwined, but that's another story. I'm really thinking about the cognitive aspects of depression and Tourette syndrome. Many people, including me, they get so bogged down with the mood, which is understandable because the low mood associated with depression is really one of the most deadly aspects of the disorder, but it's really not what does people in the end. If you ask me, one of the things that really affects people with depression, it's the cognitive dysfunction, the trouble thinking. Let me just give you an example. I mean, let's say you're a college student and you're depressed. The first thing people think of when they think of depression is low mood. But before the low mood even kind of comes, many times, and of course everyone's different, but many times they'll have trouble thinking clearly, or they'll have trouble with organization, or they'll start withdrawing from friends, which you could argue is a symptom of low mood. But what I would say is that it's a symptom of amotivation. You're amotivational. You have little or no motivation to do things. So you'll have no motivation to wake up and go to class. You'll have no motivation to study for your tests. You'll have no, I think you know where I'm going with this, right? So clearly depression is not just low mood, which I think many people with depression know, but I think that the depression ironically prevents them from seeing the other symptoms and from thinking clearly. And I have my own moments of not thinking clearly, not above this by any means. But anyway, going back to my example, what do you think would be the consequences of not having motivation to do your schoolwork, not having motivation to network, as a freshman in college, let's say that? So obviously, depending on the degree of motivation, you may fail out of college. And guys, that's what happened to me. I failed out of college multiple times, and it was 100% a result of, number one, not being prepared for college, because my symptoms of my mental illness kind of emerged in high school. And not to mention I have Tourette syndrome, so it made high school hard for me. And many people with Tourette syndrome and depression, like I said, they have trouble concentrating. But if you have Tourette syndrome, chances are you may have ADD, ADHD, just various cognitive symptoms that make it hard to succeed without help. And because I wasn't diagnosed until after I graduated high school, and there's no educational intervention, I was left at a massive disadvantage when it came to succeeding in my age group. So it just left me consistently feeling like I was falling short. And the reality is, the measuring stick shouldn't be the same for me as it is for everybody else, because number one, I'm my own person, but number two, my educational requirements were different than the average population. So I grew up feeling like I was different than other people, and I just couldn't put my finger on it. But anyway, so Tourette syndrome, like I said, many people get caught up on the tics, but I know that there are attention problems that many people with Tourette syndrome have. I know that I definitely have attention problems. I have trouble focusing on one thing at once, especially if it's boring, like math or now web development. Of course, there are exciting moments, like when you get something right, but really what I'm saying is that many times if you have attention problems, there seems to be a low frustration tolerance that really occurs with these attention problems, which really sucks, by the way, because if you have attention problems and you have low frustration tolerance, it's like kicking someone while they're down, So it just makes it very hard for me to concentrate. And if we fast forward to the present day, like I'm trying to do this online school for web development, and I mean many days I my attention span was even like 2 minutes, if that was on a good day, to actually get homework done. So everything takes me way longer than it should. Like if you go to my YouTube, I compared my trajectory like a bullet through ballistics gel. That's what it feels like. It's so slow. It's so slow in terms of just me getting anything fucking done. And like I am gonna curse because it's incredibly frustrating knowing what you need to do and having at least some sort of formula, but not having the attention and the motivation and the energy to get things done. Like I feel many days I honestly feel like I'm functionally disabled. Like it's so frustrating, guys. So like my heart goes out to anybody that could relate to what I'm saying, because it's really what is one of the things in terms of depression. It's one of the things that really I mean, I'm gonna get dark, guys, but many people kill themselves. You know, many people commit suicide because they failed out of college due to depression, or they lost their job because the symptoms of depression prevent them from succeeding like how they can be. And I'm gonna remind you guys, I'm not just talking about sadness. Like this whole video, I know I'm kind of meandering through various topics, but this whole video is really less about the mood side of things and the tic side of things, if I'm talking about Tourette syndrome, and more about the cognitive elements of both disorders, because both disorders, Tourette syndrome and depression, they both have cognitive symptoms. So I would encourage you guys to really read up on this, because I can't cover, you know, all the cognitive elements of both disorders in this video, nor am I qualified to, but I just speak from experience, and it just seems like I've really been overlooking the cognitive side of these disorders, and I've been actually internalizing it and like looking at it like a personal failure. Like I've been thinking that I'm a failure because I can't concentrate on my work and I can't get anything done, but the reality is I'm sick and my health isn't being addressed. So like it makes me extremely frustrated and angry that I'm just like not where I want to be in my life. But once again, if I look back on all the things that have happened to me and just my low performance in really all aspects of my life, for the most part, I can really pin it down to it really coming from multiple areas, but the two areas are Tourette syndrome and depression. So talk to your doctors, like especially if you're low performing in terms of your functionality and your work performance or your school performance. Talk to your doctor and see maybe if you could get your medication adjusted. Obviously, medication isn't the only answer. You could go to psychotherapy, but I think for many people, depending on the severity of their symptoms, they're going to need some sort of medication to really help them get their functioning where it really needs to be. So I don't know how much more I can really talk about this, because I'm not qualified to really tell you guys what you need to do. But if I could go back in time, I think number one, I would have made healthier lifestyle choices, and I don't want to go into detail about what I mean, but like I'll just say, you know, like using alcohol to manage your symptoms like is not a good idea. I mean, we've all done it, many of us have. And I would also say, especially if you're on medication, you can't drink. Like I would do things where I wouldn't even give myself the fighting chance to have the medication work, let alone just even recovering without the medication, because alcohol prevents it's a depressant. It's going to mess with your brain chemistry even if you're not on medication, but especially if you are, you prevent the medication from working. And I would also say I would have been much more aggressive. I feel a sneeze coming on. I would have been excuse me, I would have been much more aggressive with going to sleep on time. So like fixing my sleep schedule. Actually, I would do that first, because that, you know, staying up too late feeds a lot of the other symptoms. So like abstaining from alcohol, fixing my sleep schedule, and my diet, like those three pillars, even if you decided to take antidepressants or other, even if you decided to take other kind of drugs like that, like antidepressants or neuroleptics for, you know, for Tourette's or depression, you need to have the healthy lifestyle so the medication can act on something, because the medication can only act on so much dysfunction. Like if you're living a highly dysfunctional life, that's the point that I'm getting towards. If you're living a highly dysfunctional life, like you're not eating properly, you're not sleeping properly, you're drinking, you're smoking marijuana, like the medication can only counteract, that's what I'm trying to say, a certain level of dysfunction. Like you need to give yourself a fighting chance, guys. So that's my message, and that's what I would have done if I could go back in time and like change things. I 100% would have fixed all those things. So I'm at the 10-minute mark. I have to stop talking, and I gotta go to the gym. But I hope that this video helps somebody, and just hang in there, guys. Keep fighting.